Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? Like the stillness wasn't peaceful anymore, it was heavy? That kind of quiet has a name. It's not just silence. It's loneliness. And for many people, especially after 80, it's a feeling that starts creeping in more often than we like to admit. You might have family, grandkids, neighbors who wave, and still feel like you're drifting on a little island that no one visits unless there's a holiday or something needs doing. It's not that people stop loving you. It's that life moves fast, sometimes too fast, and you can be left standing still, watching it blur by. Suddenly, the house that used to be full of laughter and footsteps feels bigger, emptier, and a little colder. This video isn't meant to scare you. It's not a complaint or a list of things to be bitter about. It's a conversation. One heart to another. Because after 80, life does change, and not all of those changes are gentle. There are real truths, sometimes brutal truths, that sneak into our everyday lives. And unless we talk about them openly and honestly, they start to steal pieces of our happiness one quiet moment at a time. So today, we're going to talk about 5 of those truths. Realities that many seniors face, but few people talk about. We're going to shine a light on them. Because when you see something clearly, you can do something about it. You're not powerless. You're not done. And you're certainly not invisible. Let's begin with the first reality. Perhaps the most obvious and the most painful. People begin to disappear from your life. It starts slowly. Maybe your best friend from the neighborhood moves away to be closer to their children. You tell yourselves you'll write, maybe call once a week, but life gets in the way. Then you lose touch. Then maybe someone from church stops showing up. Then one day you pick up the phone and find out someone you cared about has passed. It hits you harder than expected. And not just because they're gone, but because their absence reminds you of something we don't say out loud. Your circle is shrinking. Now, shrinking doesn't always mean dying. Sometimes it just means people are more wrapped up in their own lives, too busy, too distracted, or too far away. But it leaves you with the same feeling, that the connections you once leaned on are growing thinner. And that's a tough truth to face. But here's something to remember. Just because the old connections are fading doesn't mean you can't form new ones. You may think, at my age, make new friends? What's the point? But let me tell you something. Connection has no expiration date. You are never too old to find someone who laughs at your stories, who asks how you're doing and genuinely want to hear the answer. Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? Yes, it's harder. Yes, it takes effort. And yes, it might feel awkward at first, but it's possible. Whether it's a weekly meetup at the senior center, joining a virtual book club, or striking up a conversation with a neighbor you've seen 100 times but never really spoken to, every small connection you make builds a bridge away from that island of isolation. The second reality is one we rarely talk about, but almost all of us feel. You start to feel invisible. It can happen in subtle ways. Maybe at the grocery store, the cashier talks to the person behind you, but barely makes eye contact with you. Or at family gatherings, your thoughts and opinions are brushed off with a quick, yeah, as if you couldn't possibly understand the world today. It's not always disrespect. Sometimes it's just thoughtlessness. But the result is the same. You feel like a ghost walking into the life you used to own. This invisibility isn't just about others. Sometimes it seeps into how we see ourselves. You might start to believe you have nothing important to say, or that you're just a background character now in other people's lives. But I want to stop you right there. You are not invisible. You are a living archive of wisdom, experience, and resilience. You've been through wars, heartbreaks, miracles, transformations. You've seen the world evolve in ways younger generations can't imagine. That matters. So, how do you fight the feeling of invisibility? You speak. You share. You write. You create. You ask questions. You stay curious. You find ways to make your presence felt. Even if it's just a short letter to your grandchildren about what life was like when you were their age. Or a comment at the next community meeting about something that matters to you. Or simply choosing to sit outside where the world can see you instead of hiding behind closed blinds. When you show up fully, confidently, and without apology, you remind the world, I'm still here, and I still count. Now, I know that both of these realities, shrinking circles and feeling invisible, can sometimes make the loneliness worse because they stack on top of each other. Fewer people to talk to, less acknowledgement when you do. It can make you want to retreat completely. Why try if no one's paying attention? But that's when you must lean into the truth. Your value does not depend on how many people show up at your door or how often your phone rings. Your worth isn't measured by your productivity, your speed, or your appearance. It is rooted in the life you've lived, the people you've loved, and the quiet strength you carry with you every single day. You matter. You always have. And your story isn't over, not by a long shot. Sometimes, what really deepens that lonely feeling isn't just the absence of people. It's the absence of purpose. That brings us to another tough reality that many people experience after 80. You start to question why you're still here. What's your role now? Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? For most of your life, your identity was tied to something. You were the parent, the spouse, the worker, the volunteer, the neighbor always ready to lend a hand. You had jobs to do, people to care for, schedules to manage. Your days were full. And even if they were exhausting sometimes, they gave you direction. But now, maybe you don't have that job anymore. Maybe your kids are grown and don't need you the same way. Maybe your spouse is gone. And the question creeps in quietly, in the slow hours of the afternoon, or as you lie awake at night. What do I even do now? What's left for me? Let me tell you something important. You are not here by accident. If you woke up this morning, you have purpose. You don't have to save the world or climb a mountain to have meaning. Purpose doesn't have to be big and flashy. It can be small, quiet, and deeply powerful. Maybe it's calling someone who's lonelier than you are. Maybe it's planting flowers that make your neighbor smile when they walk by. Maybe it's mentoring a younger person who needs guidance and patience that only someone like you can offer. Maybe it's learning something new that challenges your brain and lifts your spirit. You're not just here to fill space. You're here to make a mark. And every day you choose to participate in life, even in the smallest way, you are living with purpose. That alone can push back the shadows of loneliness. Because when you have a reason to get up, even something as simple as feeding the birds or writing in your journal, you begin to feel alive again. And here's the thing, people will start to notice. Not just because you're doing something, but because you'll begin to carry yourself with more energy, more presence. That invisible feeling we talked about earlier, it starts to fade when you move through the world like someone who still has something to give. Because you do. Now, another reality that quietly feeds loneliness, and one that's rarely spoken about, is how routines start to shrink. Your world can become very, very small. There was a time when you had errands, appointments, grandchildren, soccer games, friends to visit. You had plans. You had reasons to get dressed, get in the car, step out into the world. But over time, those outings grow fewer. Your schedule might now revolve around medication times, television shows, and meal prep. Days blur together. Weekends feel no different than weekdays. The routine becomes a rut, and the rut can quietly become a cage. And let me be clear, it's not because you're lazy or unmotivated. Sometimes your body slows down, energy dips, transportation becomes harder, or you worry about safety or falling, or just not feeling like you belong in certain places anymore. These are valid concerns. But staying home all the time, staying stuck in the same rhythm, can deepen that loneliness like nothing else. So what do? Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? You stretch your day just a little. You don't have to overhaul everything, but add in small changes that break the pattern. Maybe it's going for a 5-minute walk in the morning sun. Maybe it's trying a new hobby that makes you feel creative or curious. Maybe it's going out once a week to a place where people gather. Even if you don't talk to anyone, just being around others can remind your mind and spirit that you're part of a bigger world. And if going out feels too hard right now, bring the world to you. Host a coffee morning, even if it's just one neighbor. Invite your grandkids over and ask them to teach you how to use something new on your phone or computer. Stream a concert or travel video and visit a place you've never seen. Make your world feel wider again, even if you never leave your living room. When you shift from passing time to experiencing life, the weight of loneliness begins to lift because there's movement again. There's stimulation. There's change. And change brings light. Now, we have to talk about something a little heavier, but it's important. One of the most brutal realities about aging loneliness is how easily it can be masked by silence. In other words, you get really good at pretending you're fine. People ask, "How are you?" And you say, "Oh, I'm doing okay," even when you're not. You smile at the nurse, gnaw at the neighbor, send a thumbs up emoji to your daughter. You've learned not to bother anyone with how you're really feeling. And sometimes it's not even about pride. It's about not wanting to seem weak or needy or like someone who can't handle being alone. But here's what happens when you stay silent. No one knows. No one can help. And the loneliness grows stronger in the dark. You have every right to speak up. Loneliness isn't shameful. It's human. And you're not alone in feeling alone. Far from it. Millions of people your age feel the same way, but keep it to themselves. What would happen if you broke that silence? Imagine telling your doctor, "I'm feeling more isolated lately. Do you know of any senior programs or support groups?" Imagine calling your niece and saying, "I'd love to talk more often. Can we pick a regular day to catch up?" Imagine reaching out to someone else who's also alone and saying, "Want to be my phone buddy once a week?" That kind of honesty, yes, it takes courage, but opens doors. It lets in air and light. It tells people, "Hey, I'm still here, and I still need connection." When you speak the truth about your experience, you give others permission to do the same. And together, you can begin to rebuild those bridges out of isolation. And I want to say something directly to anyone watching who's been alone for a very long time, months, even years, and who's convinced themselves this is just how life is now. Please hear me. It doesn't have to be. Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? Even if the house is empty, even if the phone is quiet, even if the days feel too long, you are not beyond reach. There are people, communities, resources, and hearts out there waiting to connect. The first step, the hardest step, is choosing to believe that change is possible. You don't have to chase a busy life, but you do deserve a connected one. Even one good conversation a week. Even one kind face you can look forward to. That's enough to start feeling human again. I know it might feel awkward at first. You might not know where to begin. That's okay. Start small. Say hello to someone new at the grocery store. Join a local walking group. Ask your local library or community center about senior events. Use that phone, not just to scroll or check the weather, but to dial someone's number and hear their voice. You've spent your life building relationships. You already have the skills. Now it's just about using them in a different season of life, because you're still capable of connection. You're still worthy of love, and your presence still matters to more people than you probably realize. One of the most unexpected things about loneliness after 80 is how it can sneak into your life, even when you're not technically alone. You might have family that checks in now and then, neighbors who wave from across the street, or caregivers who stop by to help. But still you feel it, that hollow space inside, that ache that says I'm surrounded, but not really seen. This brings us to one of the more painful realities of growing older. Emotional connection becomes harder to find, even when people are physically present. And it's not because the people around you don't care. Often they do, but they're busy, or distracted, or they don't quite know what to say. Maybe they talk at you, not with you. Maybe the conversations feel shallow or rushed, like checking off a box. You might nod and smile, say you're doing fine, but inside you're thinking, does anyone really know what I'm going through? Does anyone actually see me for who I am now, not just who I used to be? This kind of invisible loneliness is often the hardest to talk about. It's hard to explain to your adult children that even though they call, it still feels like something's missing. It's hard to tell your doctor that even though you're managing your health, your heart feels like it's drying out. The truth is, emotional connection requires presence. It requires slowing down, listening deeply, and sharing from a place of trust and honesty. And yes, in this fast-paced world, that kind of connection can feel rare. But rare doesn't mean impossible. So what can you do when your world feels full of noise, but empty of real connection? You start by being brave enough to go a little deeper yourself. Let your conversations carry more meaning. When someone asks how you are, give a real answer. I've been feeling a little lonely this week. Or, I really miss having long talks like we used to. You don't have to pour your heart out every time, but letting others see a bit more of your emotional truth opens a door for them to respond in kind. Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? Sometimes we wait for others to initiate the deep connection we crave, but often the ones around us are just waiting for permission to know it's okay to slow down, to ask the real questions, to sit with the quiet. You might be surprised how many people in your life are longing for the same thing you are, a real heart-to-heart connection. But someone has to go first. Why not you? If those around you can't meet you emotionally right now, that doesn't mean you have to give up. You can also seek out relationships where deeper connection is a goal from the start. That could be a support group, a faith community, or even online forums designed for seniors. Yes, the internet has its flaws, but also offers some beautiful spaces where older adults connect in ways they never imagined possible. You'd be amazed at how quickly a sense of belonging can return when someone says, "I understand. I feel that way too." Now, there's another layer to all this, a brutal truth that takes many people by surprise. As you age, the people you share the deepest bonds with start disappearing. Friends pass away. Siblings fade into illness. Sometimes even spouses leave this world before you. And there's no sugarcoating it. It hurts. It leaves a hole that can't be filled with just any new friend, no matter how kind or well-meaning they are. These are the people who knew your stories, who laughed with you when you were young, who stood by you in hard seasons, who finished your sentences. When they go, it's not just their presence you lose. It's your shared history, your inside jokes, the feeling of being known without having to explain a thing. This is grief, and grief is a form of loneliness all its own. It's not just about missing someone. It's about feeling like a part of you disappeared with them. And in a way, it did. But here's the truth. Just because someone is no longer physically here doesn't mean they can't still be a part of your emotional world. You carry their memory. You honor their voice every time you tell one of their stories. You bring them back into the room when you smile the way they made you smile, or you pass on the wisdom they once gave to you. Grief changes shape over time. It may never disappear completely, but it can soften. And when you allow yourself to keep loving, even through the pain, you create space for new connections. Not replacements, but additions. People who may never know your whole past, but who can still become a meaningful part of your present. This takes courage, because making new friends after loss often feels like opening an old wound. You think, why bother? I'll just lose them too. But love isn't something we're meant to shut off. Love is what keeps us alive, really alive. So maybe today you can take one small risk. Call someone you haven't spoken to in years. Write a letter. Invite someone over. Say yes to the woman at the senior center who keeps asking you play cards. It's not about filling the void. It's about planting new seeds of connection, even in the soil of sorrow. Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? You may be surprised what begins to grow. Now, before we move forward, I want to share something that many people discover after 80 that catches them completely off guard. It's not just that others pull away from you. It's that you start pulling away from yourself. When you're lonely for long enough, something strange can happen. You start to believe that you deserve it. You look at your reflection and think, maybe I'm just hard to love now. Maybe I've become a burden. Maybe I'm not interesting anymore. You stop sharing your opinions. You stop dressing up. You stop trying. Not because you've given up entirely, but because a quiet voice inside has convinced you that you just don't matter as much anymore. That voice is lying to you. Let me say it again. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not too old to make a difference, to build friendships, to be cherished. The world may not always reflect your value back to you, but that doesn't mean the value isn't there. You are the result of decades of living. You've built families, solved problems, survived losses, and grown wisdom that others can only dream of. You are a library, a living story, a treasure chest full of experience and strength. And that has nothing to do with how many people call you in a week. That has nothing to do with whether or not you walk as fast as you used to or remember every little thing. Your worth is not up for negotiation. So, how do you start reclaiming that sense of self-worth? Begin with how you talk to yourself. When that inner critic starts whispering, "You're just old and forgotten," talk back. Say, "No, I'm still here. I still matter. I am still becoming who I was meant to be." Treat yourself the way you would treat a dear friend. Speak kindly. Celebrate the small victories, making your bed, going outside, cooking a real meal. These are not small things. These are acts of self-respect, and they chip away at the loneliness bit by bit. And remember, loneliness doesn't define you. It's a season, a feeling, not a permanent sentence. There are people out there waiting for someone like you. People who will be blessed by your presence, your humor, your stories, your care. But before they can find you, you have to believe you're worth finding. And you are. You truly are. Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? If you've made it this far in our conversation, I want to pause for just a moment and say, thank you. Truly, it takes courage to sit with these truths. It takes even more courage to admit when loneliness has crept in, especially in a world that often expects seniors to stay quiet, to stay cheerful, to simply be grateful. But the truth is, being grateful doesn't mean pretending you're not hurting. You can appreciate your blessings and still feel the ache of missing companionship, connection, and purpose. And that's okay. What's not okay is giving up on the chance to live a deeply fulfilling life just because things look different than they used to. Just because some doors have closed doesn't mean new ones can't open. And sometimes, the most meaningful chapters of our lives begin when we stop waiting for someone else to rescue us and decide to show up for ourselves. So, where do we begin? We begin by creating moments of connection instead of waiting for them. That might mean walking down the hall and knocking on a neighbor's door just to say hello. It might mean volunteering a few hours a week at the local library or animal shelter. Yes, even at 80 or 90. Your presence, your warmth, your wisdom, these are gifts the world still needs. It might mean joining a local senior walking group or calling the community center to ask about upcoming events. It might even mean learning something new, a language, an instrument, how to video chat with your grandkids. Every time you step into something unfamiliar, you expand your world just a little bit. And when your world expands, loneliness has less room to grow. You don't have to do big, bold things to make an impact. Start small. Water a plant. Write a letter. Sit outside and wave at the mail carrier. These little acts connect you to life in ways that truly matter. They create a rhythm, a pulse, a reminder that you're still here, still part of something greater than yourself. Another beautiful thing you can do, share your story. You have a lifetime of memories, lessons, and lived experiences that could light the way for someone else. Don't underestimate that. Whether it's through a journal, a voice recording, a blog, or just telling your grandchildren how you fell in love, or what you learned during hard times. It matters. Your story matters. When we tell our stories, we reconnect with ourselves. We remember who we are. We remind others of where they come from. And we make sure that our lives continue to touch others long after we're gone. And if you ever find yourself thinking it's too late, I'm too old, let me stop you right there. It's not too late. You're not too old. As long as you're breathing, you are becoming. You are evolving. You are capable of joy, growth, and deep connection. Even now, I once heard someone say, "Don't count the candles, light them." That sentiment has always stuck with me. Because yes, you may have more candles than ever before, but each one represents something you survived, something you've learned, something you've loved. That is no small thing. So light them, celebrate them. Let them remind you that you are still a light in this world. Maybe even someone else's light. Someone who needs to see a person like you living fully and fearlessly at 80 or 85 or 92. Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt like the silence was just a little too loud? And if you felt alone lately, truly alone, I want you to remember this. Loneliness is not a flaw in you. It's a signal that your heart is still longing for love, still open to connection. still tender and human and alive. That longing is not weakness. It's strength. It means you haven't hardened. You haven't shut down. And that means healing is still possible. You deserve a life that includes companionship, laughter, and purpose. You deserve to wake up and feel like the day ahead is worth looking forward to. And that doesn't require perfect health or a bustling social calendar. It simply requires you to reach out to others and to yourself, with just a little more kindness and hope than you did yesterday. Before we end, let's take one small moment together, right here, right now. Close your eyes for a few seconds. If you're comfortable doing so, take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Now gently say to yourself, I am still here. I am still worthy. I am not alone, because you're not. This community is here. I'm here. And the world, though it moves fast if it gets too quickly, still needs the strength, compassion, and wisdom that only someone like you can give. If anything in this video resonated with you today, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment and share what spoke to your heart. You never know who might read your words and feel just a little less alone because of them. And if you found this message helpful or comforting, give a thumbs up. It helps more people find this kind of support when they need it most. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel. We talk about real things here, honest things, but we always end with hope, because that's what life after 80 deserves. Truth, yes, but also tenderness, also joy. Here's to you, the whole of you, not just the age or the aches or the quiet days, but the fire still burning quietly inside. May you find connection, may you feel seen, and may you never, ever forget how much your life still matters. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, this world is better because you're in it.